Massively multiplayer online role-playing games, or MMORPG for short. This is a genre that used to excite me, used to get my blood pumping, but now, these days, meh. And I thought I'd make a video talking about my feelings about MMOs back in the day, how much I loved them, and where they are today, and how much I don't love them. So stay tuned! Nerd Player. If you're someone like myself who played a lot of MMORPGs growing up, well, this video is going to hit home with you because, as you'll notice, and many of us have, that there's not really that many anymore. There's maybe a total of 3 that I can think of that people play consistently that are subscription based. I'm not talking about the free-to-play ones because they're a dime a dozen from Korea. In the early years of online PC gaming, the MMORPG genre was something of a status symbol, I would say, in my opinion at least. The idea of a virtual video game world that continues to exist even if I'm not logged into it, where it will grow, prosper, and live on whether I go back to it or not. That was something that was very appealing. It was a genre that really made you feel detached from reality at times because the game was so immersive. You were playing with real people. You made this character who was you. My first recollection of playing an MMORPG was with EverQuest Online. I played it a lot and I begged my parents to get me a subscription, and this is still at a time where online credit cards and stuff, people were really cautious about doing that because they didn't want to get their information stolen. And yeah, that can happen today, but back then, you know, again, the internet was still really in its infancy, and so this was kind of a gray area. These games were money-making machines because you had to pay a monthly subscription in order to continue service with the game in order to play it. And since the games were so addicting, it worked. I'll never forget the first time I stepped foot into the world of Norath. That's EverQuest, or EverCrack, people. The game was extremely successful. People were quitting their jobs to play EverQuest full time. That should show you how popular the game was and how addicting it really is. And I think the reason why it was so addictive is because the game was open-ended. It never truly ended. There was an infinite number of things to do in this world, and you could really play forever as long as the servers were up, and technically they still are. And as we all know, World of Warcraft was released from Blizzard in 2004, and a shift in the MMO genre happened. I would say a generalized opinion would be that World of Warcraft was the beginning of the end for the MMO genre. Don't get me wrong, I played World of Warcraft for 8 years straight, so I know what I'm talking about. I guess the best way to describe how going from playing EverQuest to playing World of Warcraft is that it's like stepping into the shallow end of the pool when you've been in the deep end for so long. World of Warcraft was easy mode for MMORPG players. It was like training wheels. Again, don't get me wrong, vanilla WoW was hard, just not as hard as EverQuest. And as the years went on, we got multiple expansions of World of Warcraft, and with each one became easier and easier and easier, or I should say more streamlined, because they wanted to draw in new players that weren't really familiar with this genre. Again, this all goes back to money. They want people to come in, they want the player base to stay strong, and if there's a big player base, whether the game's good or not, people are gonna stay. And that's one of the reasons why these games were so successful. It wasn't necessarily the game itself keeping you there, though it was a huge part of it. It was the community and people you played with within that world. Some of the best times in World of Warcraft for me was just hanging out with my guild on Ventrilo. If you don't know what Ventrilo is, it's kind of like Discord, but way more ancient. Something I kind of miss about guilds was the guild drama. There was always guild drama going on. If you had a big guild with people that were really active, that were always playing the game, that you depended on to help you out, get through dungeons, raids, stuff like that, there was bound to be some guild drama, especially if you were a guy and there were girls in your guild that you were playing with. One of the main draws for me with MMORPGs is being the best at whatever class I pick, which is usually a healer. Yes, I know you don't have to say it. Me being thick as fuck and being 6'2", you think that I would play tank, but nope, you're wrong. Heals all the way, baby. Healing isn't easy to do because you're not doing any damage to the enemy while everyone else is. You are focusing on healing every single party member, and there's a lot of micromanaging that goes into that. I'm someone who really likes using magic, and if I can use healing magic, that's even better. I don't like to do damage. I like to protect my teammates. I like to make sure that they have that little barrier around them to get them further in the dungeon. Because if you don't have a good healer, I mean, you're not gonna win. That's just as simple as that. You can get by with a shitty tank as long as you have good DPS, but if you don't have a good healer, you're effed. Also, if you don't know what DPS is, damage per second. I like being that healer in the guild that everyone goes to when they need to get something done that they can't get past. I like being that person they depend on. Eventually, the MMO market was completely oversaturated and it led to a lot of bad things happening. Let me put it for you like this. MMOs are typically subscription based. If it's a AAA title, it's definitely going to be subscription based. You have to pay some sort of fee in order to play. That's called pay to play. This means that you are paying for the content that they are putting out. You're paying for your slot in the server. Now, when an expansion for the game comes out, you have to pay for the expansion, which gives you a lot more content. You can still play the base game, but you won't get to touch any of that content unless you pay for it. You gotta keep making content for the game indefinitely, to be honest, and you know, it's worth money to pay if you're gonna give us stuff that adds more to the game that we're already paying for. But if your game doesn't have a big community of people playing, no one is going to go to it and pay you money for that content. So really, the death of an MMORPG is usually when it goes free to play. They have to make their money up somehow with microtransaction, and this leads into a really shitty gray area because microtransactions can be even worse for your game. Yeah, you might be making money, but your community will die faster and faster and faster with these microtransactions, especially if it's pay to win, which means you're paying for content in an in-game shop that allows you to buy items that makes your character better than someone else's. So whenever I hear pay to win, I stay away because I'm not gonna spend money on a game to make myself better when other games, like a game that has a subscription service, will let me play the game and be the best on my own merits and skill. And thus a huge percentage of the MMO market suffered this fate, which led to a lot of shitty South Korean MMORPGs flooding the market being free to play. Most of the free MMOs that are out right now are typically from China or South Korea, and they're not very good. The games aren't fun, but somehow they survive. I don't know. And so with the MMO bubble growing and growing, eventually it popped, and now we only have like 2 or 3 top dog MMORPGs that are still subscription based. And I'm not counting subscription based free to play games that you can still have a subscription to get perks. I'm talking about AAA MMORPGs that still require a subscription to play consistently. And you know, most games have free trials to determine if you want to play, but you can't usually get very far, and you're limited to a lot of what you can do. There's not only a drought in the MMO market, there's also been a shift in the style of gameplay for MMORPGs. The MMORPGs now are focused more on hack and slash real-time battling systems, which that's fine if you like that, but I don't. In this community, I would probably say that I'm an old timer when it comes to the MMORPG genre because I prefer the classic styles of play where it's tab targeting, that's pressing tab to switch between targets, there's cooldown times, there's cast times, there's auto attacking. I like that style. It's just what I prefer. I hate to say this, but it's one of those things where you kind of just had to be there and play that style and experience it because that's the only thing you had. So that's why I'm more accustomed to it. I don't like playing MMOs with a controller. It just, I don't know, it doesn't feel right. I like battling that's more focused on numbers rather than being flashy. I like knowing that I can make myself better by getting better gear, tweaking stats, speccing in the right talent tree, Basically as close as you can get to Dungeons and Dragons, which there is a Dungeons and Dragons online. In fact, there's two of them. There's Neverwinter and there's also Dungeons and Dragons online. But I don't really like that Asian influence on my MMORPGs. I don't really like anime style when it comes to a fantasy world. I like grounded more in reality with humans that look like humans and not like a lolly chibi character that some neckbeard wants to fuck. But like with all things, time always changes everything. A lot of people these days would consider the style of MMOs that I like to play being outdated and archaic, which that's totally fine, it technically is. But thankfully, there are some developers that are still trying to bring back the golden age of MMORPGs with games such as Pantheon: Rise of the Fallen, which is made by a bunch of people who made the original EverQuest game, and also the game Ashes of Creation, which I don't know a whole lot on, but it looks really promising. I've been following Pantheon: Rise of the Fallen for years now, and every time I see an update on the development for it, I get super excited because it's promising a lot of things that are from the days that I played MMOs. That style, that kind of world where it's all about teamwork, relying on other people to help you through. It's about the journey, not so much the end goal. It's one of the things that really makes MMOs so addicting. I'm not really sure why I felt compelled to make a video talking about my MMO history. I guess just to maybe talk about my love for the genre and how much it's changed over the years. It's not the same. I wish I could say it was, but like I said, time changes everything, and definitely this genre, at least for now, has changed for the worse. I don't know what the point of this video was, to be honest with you. I just wanted to talk about MMOs and how I miss the good old days and how MMOs suck now. Let me know down in the comments section if you're someone who remembers the good old days of MMORPGs. What was your addiction? What was the MMORPG that you were addicted to, you couldn't get enough of, you loved every minute of it, and played consistently for years? So with that being said, I would like to give a huge shout out and thank you to my Patreon supporters. Love you guys. Nuka P Demon on YouTube, Russ Lyman on YouTube, Sean Phillips, Aaron Parks, Mr. Pisley, Looney, Uneven Pavement, Wonder Woman Rose, Creep Queen on Twitch, Bob is a Jerkface, Dren Hatamana on YouTube, Tiny Bratface, Nintendo25 on YouTube, Anonymous, and last but certainly not least, Tuffy the Mouse. And if you guys want to get a shout out like these guys got, Patreon is down below. It's a $1 a month tier, and I have merch. I just put out a new line of Vaporwave Nerd Lair t-shirts, really cool designs. Go check them out, and if you buy something from there, thank you. All right, again, that's it for this episode of the Nerd Lair. I'll see you guys in the Nerd Lair next time. Stay nerded.